Greg's voice echoed through the speaker, all syrupy and fake, like he was auditioning for some motivational podcast. "Can we give a big round of applause for Jason?" he said, like Jason had just cured cancer. I sat in the corner of the office, half hidden behind my monitor, pretending to tweak a presentation slide that had been done 2 days ago. My screen didn't need fixing. I just didn't want anyone seeing the look on my face. Jason leaned back in his chair like he owned the place. "Thanks, man. Really couldn't have done it without the team," he said, shooting me this smug little smile like we were in on the same joke. We weren't. That logistics rollout he was getting praised for, I built it. I handled the back-end redesign, rewrote broken APIs, fixed every crash loop at 2 in the morning while he was out strategizing with Greg over beers. "Jason pulled off the impossible," Greg went on. "This kind of leadership, rare stuff, game changer." Everyone clapped. Real claps too, not even the sarcastic kind. I kept my hands on the keyboard. No way in hell I was joining that circus. Quick note, before we go further, share which city or country you're watching from. Jason had almost tanked the whole thing. Guy didn't know a log from a latency spike. I'd been babysitting junior devs who didn't know the difference between JSON and Java, working double time to patch their mistakes before anything hit prod. And now, here we were, Jason, crowned hero. Me, fake clicking a bullet point on a deck I wrote alone while Greg sipped his third La Croix and repeated his favorite line. "You know," he said, switching gears like he just remembered I existed, "we couldn't do any of this without Kyle. You're the backbone of this team." That was it. Backbone! Like I was a solid piece of drywall he could lean on while someone else took the spotlight. I unmuted for 1 second. "Thanks, Greg." He nodded like a senator at a town hall. "Hey, meant to follow up on your raise request? Still waiting on to budget finalization. You know how it is." "Yeah, Greg." I knew exactly how it was. I muted again before I said something that'd get me walked out by security. The guy couldn't even lie well. "Budget stuff? Please." They just brought on a second project manager for Jason, and she was already bragging about her signing bonus. Jason raised his coffee in a fake cheers toward the screen. "Here's to the next phase, boys." I didn't toast back. I closed the work laptop without a sound and reached under the desk for the real one. Matte black shell, red backlit keyboard, custom motherboard. I soldered myself in my garage 6 months ago. No Slack, no Jira, no Greg. This machine didn't run meetings. It built something better. I booted into the dev environment. My automation tool popped up in seconds. Lean, clean, mine. I'd stripped it down to the bone, made every line of code answer to logic, not legacy crap. It ran smoother than anything we used at work and didn't throw errors when someone clicked the wrong tab. I wasn't building this for applause. I was building it because I was tired of fixing the same problems every week while Greg passed out praise like Halloween candy. All sugar, no substance. Nights. Weekends. Lunch breaks in the parking lot, typing with my food on the dash. That's how I built this. I didn't post screenshots or tease updates. I didn't tweet nonsense about the grind or flood Reddit with startup dreams. I just wrote code, broke it, rewrote it, ran tests, wiped it clean and did it again. Greg's voice played in my head every damn time I hit a bug. "You're just so reliable, man." He meant dependable, predictable. The guy who didn't stir shit. The guy who could patch a server at midnight and still show up smiling at 9? Screw that. I wanted this tool to make his whole setup look like a dinosaur. Slow, clunky, held together with duct tape and denial. And I was close. Real close. The UI was fast. The back end scaled on demand. It flagged errors before they hit the user. It even onboarded new hires automatically. No more 3-day email chains for access and instructions. Just click, assign, done. But it wasn't perfect. Not yet. About a month ago, I finally worked up the nerve to send a cold email to a mid-sized logistics startup out in Colorado. Just a clean little pitch deck. No drama, no hard sell. They passed. Said it was clever, but not market ready. That it didn't look enterprise enough. That stung. Not gonna lie. Felt like all the nights I spent squinting at syntax bugs under garage lights meant nothing. I remember sitting there for a good hour after reading their reply, just staring at the screen, palms sweating, whole chest tight. Then I got mad. Not tantrum mad, just focused. They weren't wrong. The interface was still too bare. So I rebuilt it, kept the engine, reskinned the dashboard, made the demo smoother. I integrated more real-world data, mocked up scenarios from the job I knew inside and out. No one else was going to get this right. Not Jason, not Greg, not their fancy consultants who threw out buzzwords and left us with broken frameworks. This tool, it was built for people like me, who had to juggle 10 systems to get one task done, who got the attaboy while someone else cashed the bonus. I kept going. Every spare hour went into making the tool tighter, faster, stronger. I coded until my eyes burned and the room blurred. There were nights I didn't even realize the sun had come up until I saw it hit the window. No distractions, no validation, just progress. Some nights I'd think about quitting. I'd sit there, hands over the keyboard, wondering if I was just another idiot with a side project and a grudge. But then I'd hear Greg again. "You're just so reliable, man." And I'd snap right back to the code. Then March hit, and the startup that ghosted me, they came back. The email subject was just automation tool. I stared at it for a second, heart kicking like it forgot how to beat in rhythm. They wanted to test a pilot, said they'd talked internally. The CTO had run my build through a sandbox, and it cleaned their existing workflows in half the time. They wanted a working beta for a live test with one of their logistics chains by end of month. "Let us know if your company would need to be involved." The message ended. That one line spun my brain sideways. I froze. Could they claim this? Did I screw myself? I clicked open my employee docs folder so fast I nearly knocked over my coffee. Offer letter, NDAs, IT usage policy. It was all there, in a folder I hadn't touched since onboarding 3 years ago. I scanned like my job depended on it, because it probably did. Scroll, skim, Control+F, then I found it. Clause 7.3. Any personal project built independently, using non-company equipment and outside of business hours, remains the intellectual property of the employee. I read it again, out loud. There it was. Plain as day, mine, all of it. I didn't celebrate. I printed the damn thing, highlighted the hell out of that clause, and dropped it into my red folder. The one where I kept every raise denial, every next quarter email from Greg, every fake compliment he lobbed while passing me over. That red folder became my armor. No more late-night server patches. No more, "Hey man, real quick" Slack messages at 10 p.m. I went stealth. Clocked in, did my job, clocked out. Nothing extra, no stretch hours, no cleanup duty for Jason's mistakes. I wasn't the guy who always said yes anymore. At work, I smiled just enough. Took notes in meetings, delivered exactly what was asked. Nothing more, nothing less. I stopped correcting bad code unless it had crashed production. Let Jason flail. Let Greg assign me quick favors that stayed untouched in my inbox. At night, I worked the beta. The startup gave me clean data to play with. Their ops guy sent over use cases. I built integrations, tested edge cases, optimized logging. They reported back within days, cut average task time by 40%. I didn't tell a soul, not even Carla, and she'd been my lunch break vent buddy for over a year. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I didn't want this slipping out before it was bulletproof. I started documenting everything: timestamps, dev logs, version histories. I kept the beta build on a separate encrypted drive, backups on a second one in a fireproof box under my sink. Yeah, maybe that was overkill, but when you've been overlooked long enough, paranoia starts to feel like preparation. Greg stopped calling me backbone once I stopped doing the work no one else wanted. He started calling me quiet, said it in a meeting, like it was a flaw. "You've been a little quiet lately, Kyle." I just nodded, doing my part, and that was it. He didn't push harder. He didn't even ask what I was working on. Just moved on to praising Jason for updating a spreadsheet with the wrong client codes. Let them sink. I had other plans. 2 days later, I got the email. Subject: pilot results. Let's move forward. I didn't even need to open it to know, but I did anyway. Heart in my throat, fingers ice cold. They were in. The tool worked. Clean rollout, no crashes, no complaints. They said they'd never seen onboarding go that fast with 0 IT calls. The CTO called it frictionless. Then came the line that really hit: "We're ready to talk about a paid license." I leaned back in my chair, just stared at the screen, chest buzzing like a live wire. Before I could even breathe that in, another email hit my inbox. Different domain. Logistics firm out of Minneapolis. They'd seen the tool in action through a shared vendor and wanted to beta test it themselves. Said they'd heard it just works. 2 clients, 1 tool, 0 help. And right then, like fate had a sense of humor, Greg popped into my Slack with a message. "Hey Kyle, Meet your new intern, starting Monday. I clicked the profile, kid from some boot camp. Bio said aspiring full-stack dev. We were in trouble. Monday morning, he rolled in with a Red Bull and a laptop covered in stickers that said things like, "AI'll be back," and "Trust me, I'm a dev." Greg introduced him like he'd hired Zuckerberg. "He's hungry, sharp, you'll like him. Start him on back-end stuff, yeah?" The kid looked at me and said, "I've never done back-end, but I'm ready to learn." I blinked. "You know Python?" He smiled. "Not yet, but I learned fast. Fast enough to earn almost what I made, apparently." I found out later he was making just shy of my salary, with a signing bonus. I didn't blow up. I didn't even raise my voice. I poured all that heat straight into the final build. I cleaned up the last memory leaks, tweaked the UI animations, wrote install scripts that could run in their sleep. I built in error tracking so smooth, it could email support logs before a user even knew something went wrong. I slept maybe 3 hours a night that week. When I finally zipped up the clean release, I sat back and let myself breathe for the first time in months. It went up at 9:12 a.m. on a Wednesday. One sentence. "Tool's done. Let's see who's really been paying attention." No logo, no link, no pitch. Just enough to poke the right people. I figured 5, maybe 6 people would click like. A former coworker or 2. Maybe Carla, if she was bored on her lunch break. 15 minutes later, I had 47 comments. People I hadn't heard from in years were tagging others, asking what I built. My DMs started filling up. Not just randos, actual decision makers. CTOs, product heads. A few startup founders I used to follow quietly back when I thought I'd never build anything real. "Hey, Kyle, demo link? Would love to chat about integrations." "Wait, you built this alone?" The kicker, a mid-tier tech newsletter I pitched to last year, the one that told me my product lacked story, dropped me a message. "We're doing a feature on devs solving real ops problems. Can we include you?" I didn't even respond. Not yet. Because then came Greg. Text popped up on my personal phone like it was any other day. "Greg, work. We need to talk. Urgent." No smiley face. No man or bro like he usually threw in. Just full corporate panic. I let it sit. Didn't open it. Didn't respond. Instead, I walked out to the garage, pulled the main drive from the rig, hooked it to my backup laptop, started copying every build log, dev note, encrypted backup, and source file into 3 different locations: cloud, physical, remote. Then I did the same with the client communication, emails, test feedback, beta install guides, time-stamped and sorted. I made it bulletproof because I knew what was coming. You don't ignore your boss's urgent text after a post like that without kicking a hornet's nest. Still, I wasn't scared. Not this time. I'd done the work, documented every line, used my own time, my own hardware, on my own network. The clause was clear, the proof was solid, and my red folder was about to earn its damn name. I didn't care what Greg thought, or what he planned. While he scrambled around trying to figure out what was happening, I was already 1 step ahead, triple-checking file integrity and version timestamps. I even backed up the original clause 7.3 contract again, scanned it in high res, tagged it, filed it next to every maybe next quarter lie he ever emailed me. I kept my work laptop closed the whole day. Didn't answer Slack, didn't check Outlook. Greg could wait. The next morning, I got the email. No subject line, no meeting invite, just 1 line of text sitting in my inbox like a loaded gun. "Be in conference room C at 10 a.m. per CEO request." Not from Greg, not even from his assistant. This came straight from HR. I didn't reply, I didn't ask questions. I opened the folder that held every ignored raise and fake compliment. I slid the clause in on top, zipped it shut, and walked out of the office like I had nothing to lose. At 9:59, I opened the door to conference room C. Greg was already there, fake smile loaded, nervous energy leaking out his posture, like he couldn't decide if he wanted to shake my hand or throw it through the wall. 2 board members sat across the table, Charles Greer and Susan Something, both in press suits and unreadable expressions. Legal counsel was seated next to Greg, typing like her fingers had somewhere else to be. No one said a word. I sat down, calm, still, red folder on the table. Greg opened. "Kyle," he said, with that voice he used when he was trying to sound like a mentor, "we're all fans of what you've been building." He paused, looked at legal, then back at me. "But there seems to be some confusion. This tool you've been promoting, it falls under company property. I didn't blink. He kept going, a little sharper. You developed it while employed here. And your role includes R&D support, so technically, this belongs to us. He leaned back like he'd just dropped a checkmate. I didn't flinch. I unzipped the folder, pulled out the offer letter, turned it to clause 7.3, and slid it across the table. Built on my own time, my own tools. Off the clock, off the network. You want timestamps? I brought those too. Legal reached for the page, eyes scanning fast. I watched her face shift. Just a flicker, but it was enough. Greg saw it too. His jaw tightened. Susan leaned in to whisper something to Charles, who didn't break eye contact with me. Legal kept reading. No one raised their voice. No one called me names. Just silence. The kind that only happens when the people in power realize the guy they overlooked might actually know what the hell he's doing. I leaned back in my chair, hands on my lap. Let them sit with it. The silence dragged until the lawyer finally cleared her throat. She straightened her glasses, shuffled a few papers, and said, "Kyle, I think there may be some misunderstanding about intellectual property scope. Employment contracts often imply a duty of loyalty, and that includes implied," I cut in, "not written." She blinked, regrouped. Under common law, employers can still claim ownership if the work aligns with business interests, even when done off hours. It's called implied ownership. Duty of loyalty, implied ownership, I repeated, calm. You can say all the buzzwords you want, but this clause isn't vague. It's black and white. I flipped open the red folder again, slid another page across. Time-stamped commits, all after hours, off-network, personal hardware, local repo, backed up on a private domain. She hesitated, scanning the timestamps. Charles, one of the board members, leaned forward. "These are real?" I nodded. "Every one of them. You can check the logs. I've got server trails that verify my IP addresses never match company equipment. Not once." Greg's fake calm cracked. "You expect us to believe you just magically built this thing in your free time? Come on, Kyle. We both know how much company data this tool interacts with." "It interacts with public APIs," I said, "not our proprietary systems. The company doesn't own JSON parsing or process automation, Greg." He slammed his hand on the table. "You're twisting it." The lawyer looked up sharply like she hadn't expected him to blow up this early. Charles frowned. Greg, just his name. But the tone cut like glass. Greg turned to legal. "You're just going to sit there and let him walk off with our intellectual property? You signed off on that clause years ago." The lawyer flipped the offer letter back around, running her finger down the page. Her voice dropped. Clause 7.3. Any personal project built independently, using non-company equipment, and outside of business hours, remains the intellectual property of the employee. She paused, then added quieter. "It's still enforceable." Greg's mouth hung open like he didn't hear right. Charles leaned back in his chair, eyes never leaving Greg. "So, to be clear, he's on solid ground?" The lawyer nodded once. "Yes. Legally, yes." Greg's face went red. "That's insane. He's been using knowledge he gained here. That's derivative work." I didn't say a word, just opened my laptop and rotated the screen toward them. "Every line of code is original. Version history is intact. Pull whatever expert you want to audit it." The boardroom went dead quiet again. Susan scribbled something in her notebook, eyes cold. Charles let out a long breath, then looked at the lawyer. "You good with this?" She nodded again, slower this time. Greg slumped back like someone had kicked the floor out from under him. No one looked at me anymore, not even to challenge. I could feel the power shift. Slow, heavy, final. I didn't gloat, didn't smile. I just sat there, calm and still, and let them stew in it. Charles Greer stood up, slowly, like he wanted everyone to feel it. He didn't look at me. He looked straight at Greg, who was still slouched like someone pulled the battery out of him. "You buried a star," Charles said, voice low but sharp, and tried to steal the light. Greg opened his mouth, but Charles cut him off with one hand. Not loud, not angry, just done. "You fought harder to block him than you ever did to support him. He built the most useful thing this company's seen in 3 years, and you tried to claim it with a clause you never read." Susan packed her tablet into her leather case. Legal shut her laptop without a word. Charles finally turned to me. "We're done," he said. That was it. No threats, no drama. Just those 2 words and a clear path to the door. Greg didn't say a thing, just sat there with the original contract still in his hands, page crumpled like he'd been holding it too tight. I stood, slid my red folder back into my bag, zipped it slowly. I didn't rush it. I wanted him to feel how final this was. I looked right at him. You could have had a piece of it, I said. All you had to do was treat me like I mattered. His eyes were glassy, still no words. I walked out, didn't turn back, didn't need to. The hallway outside felt different, like the air itself had shifted. That pressure that had been sitting on my back for years. The weight of being the guy who cleaned everyone else's messes for no credit. Gone. My steps felt lighter, like gravity had finally let up. I passed Carla near the break room. She looked up from her screen, eyes wide, like she already knew. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded once. Better than ever. And I kept walking. I barely made it to the parking lot before my phone buzzed. Carla. Greg's losing it? HR's in full meltdown. You good? I paused next to my car, thumb hovering. Then I replied, I'm good. Not suing if they keep it clean. Tell them that. 3 dots blinked, then disappeared. No answer. That was enough. I stood there for a second, hand on the driver's side door, letting it all settle. Fall air hit me like truth. Sharp, cold, perfect. Smelled like dried leaves and fresh pavement. Felt like the first real breath I'd taken in years. My phone buzzed again. Different number. I almost ignored it, then saw the name. A VC out of Austin. One I pitched 6 months ago who never even replied. Now, they'd attached a term sheet. Straight offer. I didn't grin, didn't jump, just nodded once. Like the universe was finally catching up. I didn't blow the place up. Didn't torch my boss, didn't drag anyone online, didn't rant on LinkedIn. I just stopped holding up their lies. Stopped being the fallback guy. Stopped waiting for Greg to see me. As I walked toward the sidewalk, I passed the office plaque. Gold letters, fake granite, all shine, no substance. It looked smaller than I remembered, like a leftover from a chapter I'd outgrown. My inbox kept buzzing. Investors, beta testers, an old coworker from Seattle asking if I was hiring. I didn't answer yet. I didn't need to. For once, the world could wait on me. I wasn't just seen now. I wasn't just free. I was respected. I built something with my own hands, on my own time, and I protected it from the people who thought they owned me. Now they finally knew who I was, and I didn't raise my voice once. Would you have walked away or sued them for everything? Drop your answer in the comments and tell us what you would have done. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this.